let's go ahead and dive in. So again, good morning and afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on today's webinar, Moving from Disruptive Digital Transformation to Productive Digital Execution, the No-Code Way. My name's Nicole Jones. I'm the head of marketing here at Kintone, a no-code platform for building custom applications and workflows to seamlessly share information, files, and data with your team. Our Kintone CEO, Dave Landa, will be speaking more on this topic, of course, today, and sharing how citizen developers and new mode IT teams together are revolutionizing agile software development and deployment from the ground up. But before we get there, let's go over a little bit of housekeeping. So you're most likely listening using your computer speaker system, but if you'd prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will pop up. And if you have questions at any point, you can ask them by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. We'll collect those questions and we'll answer them during our Q&A session at the very end. So before I hand it over to Dave, we're going to take a quick poll. Go ahead and launch this. All right, if any, what role have you had in digital transformation efforts? So you can select one or more of the following options here. So take a few moments here to complete and we will review results in just a moment. Okay, looks like we're mostly voted. Maybe I'll give a couple more seconds here. All right, so here is how we polled. So 100% middle management. So almost everyone's had that experience, middle management, and pretty well balanced. So Dave, I'd love to hand it off to you for some more thoughts before you dive into your presentation.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nicole. No, I think that's kind of a great spread, actually. Middle management, key ones trying to implement, sort of taking the directions from leadership and working with the frontline stakeholders. So really know kind of both sides of the equation there. A lot of consultants in here as well. So I think seems like a really good group here. Looking forward to presenting to this crew.
Well, great. Right. Well, with that, I'm going to hand it off to you, Dave.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Nicole. And thank you, everyone, for attending. I will go ahead and take the screen and get started without any further ado. Let's see. There we go. All right. Well, fantastic. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So as Nicole said, moving from disruptive digital transformation to more productive digital execution, the no-code way. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And let's take a quick step back and kind of think of the definition of transformation. Really a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance from one thing basically to something else that might be totally unrecognizable. I think oftentimes when you think about transformation, we tend to think of the caterpillar to the butterfly metamorphosis, a classic metaphor, and really an amazing natural phenomenon. But let's think a little bit about disruption now, and the definition of disrupt being to throw into confusion or disorder. And when you really take a step back and look into what's going on as that caterpillar is transforming into a butterfly, it's actually pretty gruesome inside. When you get a close look, what's actually happening for that caterpillar to turn into the butterfly is that enzymes, which are triggered by hormones, are released into the cocoon, and they basically digest the insides and the entire body. So essentially eating itself and turning that caterpillar into kind of a protoplasmic goop, if you will. And then sleeper cells, like stem cells, start to then grow into that goop. It is really a very disruptive process, and again, quite gruesome. And as it turns out, a deeply disruptive process such as this tends to bring a lot of failure. In the case of the butterfly transformation, 98% failure. So really super high. They run into a lot of challenges as they're transforming with bacteria, virus, disease, parasites, predators, even dehydration can all impede a successful transformation for the butterfly. So it's a beautiful transformation, but it is fraught with disruption and danger. Transitioning here, when you turn to have a look at organizations and businesses and taking on more disruptive digital transformations, although it may not be quite as bad as in nature and in the butterfly transformation, digital transformations at organizations also fail at a really alarmingly high rate. 84%, according to Forbes study that was done through the Monitor Group partner and the author of Digital Double Helix, Michael Gale. So really significant level of failure here when you're talking digital transformation efforts. And there's really many reasons for the failure, but three causes really come up again and again. And the first one is really the nature of the transformation effort. It's really a huge, long-term, one-shot undertaking that if it's imposed from the top or from above and or via outside consultants, it tends to have, and this kind of rolls in to the second issue, they're quite related, tends to have a negative impact on the everyday stakeholders of that organization, as they weren't as much a part of the process from the outset, and they really get pulled in only when it's time to get on board, if you will. And so the mindset, the culture, to be open to this type of change, this really, really significant disruptive change is just not there because it has not been cultivated and it hasn't been something that they've been a part of. And then the third element, which is highlighted here as one of the key causes, is there tends to be an overweight focus on the external customer. And I think as John Reimer from Forrester, lead analyst from Forrester, points out, for every process that's actually digitally transformed, that's directly focused on an external customer process, there are actually hundreds and perhaps even thousands of processes and operations internally to support that external customer process. And those elements, those internal processes, really compose the essence of an organization's digital transformation needs. And those are often overlooked. And those are three really key elements for the failure of digital transformation. I think at that moment, I want to take a quick break and actually open it up for another poll question from Nicole that's related to this juncture.
Great. All right. I'm going to go ahead and launch that. So keep an eye on your screen. Here we go. How would you define your digital transformation efforts? Like over half have voted so far. Take a couple more moments here. Great. All right, going to go ahead and close and share those results.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, interesting. Yeah, it seems we've got a vast majority kind of in the neutral space. So maybe we're able to address some of those major issues that cause failure, but no one very successful, a little bit of somewhat successful, but a lot kind of right down the middle of the road here. So, well, good to see that. Let's continue on then. So now let's turn to execution. And so execution is really all about the taking of action, right? And the results of performing that action or performing those acts. Going back to nature here for the metaphor, let's talk about the beaver. Nature's extraordinary engineer, right? He executes the building of its dam, going about its very busy business, executing on a variety of different steps as he goes. Obviously, what he's quite known for is cutting down and bringing trees and branches over to the river. But before he even does that, he actually starts collecting and bringing and placing rocks down to weigh down the foundation into the place where he's going to place the dam. So bringing some rocks in there. And then as he starts bringing over more of the sticks and the branches and the trunks, he also dredges up mud from the river bottom and starts to place those in spots to solidify the dam below where the water is. And the whole family gets involved, doing different tasks, supporting one another as the dam gets further built. And, in the end, the dams do certainly transform the environment, and it's certainly a transformational experience, but it was all about the incremental execution on the variety of different steps along the way that got them there. So I think that's could be pretty instructive here as we move forward in this presentation, thinking about this execution effort to create the transformation in the end. Okay, so turning to organizations now and turning toward back to business and different organizations. Question is, how do we move from the challenges of the disrupted digital transformation onto a more successful productivity of digital execution? And certainly what we believe here at Kintone is that no-code application development platforms are really essential to be able to do this, and that there are 4 key elements involved in this process of moving toward digital execution. And the first one is empowering the citizen engineer, or the citizen developer, as is often called, really giving them the tools to be able to drive digital execution. And then the next is encouraging a kind of from the ground up approach, basically enabling frontline stakeholders to solve their own inefficiencies most effectively in their workflows and in their daily business operations. And then third is being able to alleviate some of the shadow IT issues and concerns that are out there, which I'll get into more detail a little bit later, but actually being able to enable bringing together of lots of different solutions and data into a centralized platform really becomes key in alleviating those IT issues on the shadow front. And then finally, fourth is enabling efficient ecosystem interactions. So essentially streamlining integration efforts with an ecosystem of key services. That kind of touches a little bit on the shadow IT issue, but it's also a really critical element of more productive digital execution as well. So digging into the first one, the empowering of the citizen developer. And that's really gets to the essence or the power of no-code platforms. So when you think about the state of traditional software development these days, I think many folks can agree it tends to be very time-consuming, and there's always, at least for decades now, there's been a major shortage of developers. Often stated in the hundreds of thousands in North America, shortage of of traditional coding developers. So, what does a no-code development platform bring to the table? It brings a variety of things. First of all, it tends to be easy to learn, even by non-developers, right? So the citizen developers can learn how to utilize the platform to create custom solutions very quickly. Configure out what you need to be done, and visual methods to create these solutions, number one. And then there's easy to use drag and drop forms to create databases. You have modeling of the workflow, business process management essentially, collaboration, and analytics all built into these platforms, and that can be essentially configured by non-developers and those who know their businesses best. And there's also, from a productivity enhancement standpoint, things like duplicatable components. You can create it in one app and move it to another very quickly, utilize the same application templates for new applications, and then also have the ability to create updates, preview them, but then just sort of a single click push to production capability. So a lot of productivity enhancements, and all of this really leads to a supreme level of agility, being able to iterate on, create solutions quickly and then iterate on them amazingly fast, and really allows folks to be able to change their solutions and their applications as fast as business tends to change. And again, as John Reimer from Forrester has stated, really these platforms with all these different tools have the potential to make software development as much as 10 times faster than traditional methods. Really pretty amazing. Then the next key element here, again, is since you're thinking about these no-code platform tools can be easily learned and actually naturally encourage frontline stakeholders to take ownership in optimizing their digital execution. It's really key here, because the frontline stakeholders, they're the ones who know their business processes best, right? They can help design and build optimal solutions initially, rather than going through a waterfall approach of back and forth of requirement scope and then build and review. Basically can go through that process instantly and persistently. So really huge positive impact there. And actually, maybe even more importantly, those frontline stakeholders are also the first to be aware of when business parameters or potential workflows or even teams change. And so their solutions need to change. And with that agility of the no-code platforms and sort of a combination of access that the frontline stakeholders have, that truly enables organizations to change, like I said, change and evolve at the speed that their business evolves at, and really allows them to execute digitally on all cylinders. All right, so speaking of accessibility, the issue of shadow IT often looms when discussing no-code platforms. Concerns that giving the operations folks or frontline stakeholders the power to build and or iterate on software solutions that tend to manage important data or processes is dangerous or insecure. It's a very common concern, and frankly, a pretty legitimate concern. And so I think to address that, it really does depend on the governance capabilities of the no-code platform and the types of security features and tools that the no-code platform has. Kintone, thankfully, has a whole variety of such governance tools to support the where IT needs their oversight, but also help streamline the process for those frontline stakeholders to start working and continue working on their solutions. So some of the things include in-transit and at-rest data encryption, a full suite of granular permission controls, also enhanced access and security settings and capabilities, also things like multi-factor authentication, single sign-on capabilities, and both platform and record or app level audit logging as well. But when we talk about shadow IT and we talk about no-code platforms, I think really we're talking about the concern of IT primarily and leadership in organizations that maybe their data and their processes are being dispersed through a variety of sort of non-managed platforms or point solutions that folks internally may have sought out as more productive or efficient than what their currently acceptable solutions are. And really, what's really interesting and exciting about no-code platforms is this is kind of really where they really shine. They actually become a deterrent to that type of shadow IT issues, as more solutions are actually custom built on the platform. The no-code platform with this type of IT governance capabilities actually turns into more of a centralized, managed platform for an organization's processes and data, a place where IT can actually ensure that the type of permission controls and the type of integrations and security settings are all in place for a variety of different types of solutions managing that company's operations. And so again, key, basically moving from unmanaged platforms out there, which include, by the way, things such as Excel spreadsheets and emails, all right, to a much more centrally managed platform on the no-code application platforms. And then which takes us to the next and the final key element here, and it actually kind of related to shadow IT concern, and in a way in response to it. But there's definitely been a huge trend toward integrations between and among these digital services that have in a way composed the shadow IT concern in the past. But this move toward integrations and managing integrations, I think, is nowhere more enabling and more powerful than with the no-code custom application platforms, especially when you combine those with no-code integration hubs, such as Zapier and now Microsoft Flow. Essentially, these integration hubs allow citizen developers to become citizen integrators, and they can connect data flows and workflows between custom solutions built on Kintone with any one of the literally thousands of other services that are out there, like HubSpot or Google Drive, MS OneDrive, Act, Slack, QuickBooks, et cetera, again, using very easy, declarative, and no-code building methods for these integrations as well. So, further connecting, further centralizing, and further improving transparency, productivity, and efficiency. So at that point, I'd love to transition and talk about a really great story that touches on kind of all the key elements that we just discussed here in these digital execution efforts. So Betsy Thurlow, here down on the right, is a system admin at the oldest distillery west of the Mississippi that's still operating in the same location, over 160 years old. She's not a software developer, not a professional application solution builder, but yet she has led a most extraordinary digital execution effort at her organization, McCormick Distilling. McCormick had an audit trail issue for capital expenditures, which had been done literally for over 100 years, essentially by pen and paper. So after an exhaustive search and evaluation, Betsy brought in Kintone's no-code application platform kind of for a variety of different reasons, but those included ease of use, ease of adoption, extensibility, process management, and not the least of which the granular permission controls. Within just a couple of weeks, she had built, tested, and launched the custom centralized digital solution for the CapEx process. Not only did the solution meet and even exceed expectations in terms of transparency, efficiency, and reporting. So, executive management was very happy that now they're able to see the status of the different CapEx requests, also the approval processes, all of that. But as the process touched stakeholders throughout McCormick and the power of the platform became apparent, people up and down the organization began thinking about how they could make their workflows more efficient using this new tool, and began reaching out to Betsy and working with her to build new applications on the platform that would meet their particular needs. And so, as it turned out, Betsy's profile within the company suddenly changed from someone really with little interaction with most of her colleagues, while she mostly was focused on maintaining hardware and software infrastructure in the back office. She turned into more of a pretty popular problem-solving, solution-building hero in the organization, and ended up, continuing to this day, interacting with lots of different departments there at the distiller and with lots of different levels of stakeholders. And so now, as she says, she's having fun working with folks who are coming to her, but also looking outward for more processes that she can switch over to a more productive, centralized digital execution effort than they had ever done in the past. And guess what? Along the way, she is really leading what amounts to an extraordinarily successful and organic digital transformation, really from the ground up, like we were talking about. And she has enthusiastic, proactive buy-in from her stakeholders all throughout the organization. And she's really run into very little to no actual or perceived disruption, because folks are coming to her with these change requests. And so really exciting use case. And by the way, Betsy is going to be at our Kintone Connect user conference, our annual user conference that's coming up in November. So I think Nicole will have more details on that at the end here. But if you do come, and I obviously highly recommend you to come and invite you to come, please be sure to talk to her about her experience there. All right. At this point, I want to take a step back and actually introduce Kintone a little bit more. Kintone, as we've been speaking about, a no-code product. It's really a new generation agile software development platform, right? That enables anyone, coder or non-coder. We don't talk about it much here, but we have a completely open API that lets coders also build further on top of the essential no-code platform capabilities. And so it enables anyone, coder or non-coder, in an organization to build, deploy, and iterate custom applications, specifically with the aim to make teamwork better, with sophisticated workflow management, powerful collaboration tools, and also real-time analytics. What we like to say is that we are democratizing problem solving by giving the power to build software into the hands of citizen developers, of the frontline stakeholders, and those who essentially know their organizations and their operations best. And we have a rapidly growing base of quite enthused customers, from SMBs, right up to some of the very largest organizations in the world. And the growth of our platform shows it. The Kintone Cloud platform now has well over 500,000 custom applications built and running on it, with over 1,000 new apps being launched daily. And a step back around the corporation. So Kintone Corporation, we're headquartered here in San Francisco. We're a subsidiary of Cybozu Inc., which is actually based in Tokyo and was the fastest company to go from inception to IPO in Japanese history when they went public back in 2000. And they're actually quite renowned in Japan for a very unique culture and very progressive ideals, and is consistently selected as a top great place to work. In fact, the #1 great place to work for women last year in Japan. And we are driven, all of us, part of Cybozu, are driven by the mission to make teamwork better globally. And Kintone really strives to do that specifically with the product. And just a quick look at some of the growth. So upon launching Kintone back on the cloud platform in 2011, Cybozu's growth really turned hockey stick-like, and Kintone is now actually deployed in over 8,000 organizations globally, with over 2,000 new orgs joining each month. So with that overview of the company, I want to come back and kind of summarize the key points here of the presentation. So digital transformation is hard, and success is rare. So let's focus on digital execution, right? With the help of no-code platform, a less disruptive, more incremental transformation from the bottom up can actually ensue through that methodology. And by democratizing the tools for digital execution, no-code platforms uniquely enable much greater and more broadly dispersed digital execution capabilities. And of course, Kintone is the leading no-code platform that you should be thinking about when you think about your digital execution needs. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I'm going to pass it back to Nicole, who has another poll question.
Yes, I do. Our very last one. I'm going to launch here
at the end, and I know if there's any questions that maybe already came in, we'll also answer some questions as well. So let me pass it back to Nicole and thank everyone for attending.
Thanks, Dave. Just launched this poll here. The question is, what is your organization's experience with no-code platforms? All right, looks like we got majority of our votes in, so let's find out what people said. All right, so for the majority here, first time hearing about it. Well, excellent. Welcome. That's really exciting. And just want to thank Dave again for giving his insights on no code and how you can thoughtfully execute digital transformation by executing no code tools. So with that, I'm going to just take back the screen here as we transition into questions. Bear with me one moment. There we go. All right, so it is question time. Just take a few moments to formulate your question if you haven't already. We'll go ahead and start answering those. All right, first question here. Let's see, can you give me more detail on data security and governance? I'll allow that to you, Dave.
Yeah, definitely critical piece, very important as organizations are coming on and looking to deploy no-code platforms. I think I touched on a little bit in the talk there, but really key that the no-code platform provides not only kind of table stakes data encryption, both in transit and at rest, but also the functionality, the underlying functionality for the admins and folks looking over the platform to be able to create settings around password, protection, password settings, and a lot of different custom capabilities, as well as, which I mentioned in the presentation, multi-factor authentication, being able for each and every individual application to create very granular permission controls, because as different applications go to different departments or may be shared with external vendors or partners, those granular permission all the way down to the field level become really essential. So there's an underlying infrastructure component that you want to be sure of, and that you ask the right questions around. But then there's also the platform capabilities, the settings, and the features and functions that are essential as well to look at as you're considering no-code platforms.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Let's see. We got another question here. Next question is, are there best practice recommendations to ensure that no-code solutions do not break when ERP system changes occur?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think essentially you need to put in triggers to be able to identify that. I think it depends on how you build out the API, and honestly, I'm probably not the best to go too deeply into that. We've got our system consultants and our sales engineers who can get more deeply into that type of deeper API integration with some of the larger ERP systems that we do integrate with. And so, it's a matter of being able to structure your integration in a way in which you account for that. But yeah, I don't want to speak out of school into too much detail here, but certainly I would suggest you can reach out to our tech support and be able to dig in deeper on that question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tech support, or if you want to reach out to me, Nicole@Kintone.com, I'll make sure to route you to the right person. Excellent. All right. So next question here. What are some of the most common use cases with Kintone?
Yeah, so lots of different use cases. Really the core element, because it is, an agnostic platform, could be utilized for a variety of different types of solutions. But the core elements really, as long as you're dealing with a process in which you need a database, so you have a need for to store data, keep data, manage data in a database, and that there is a process in which certain elements of that data is updated or approved or passed on. And then there's an element of teamwork and collaboration, where there's a group or a team reviewing that. So there's a lot of different processes there, but those are the three core pillars of the Kintone platform and our no-code platform. And so that could be project management, certainly could be a variety of different type of HR solutions, many different process management workflows around operations, from small tangential operations right up to examples of small, almost as an intranet to manage their core operations. So again, as long as you have the need for a database, an easily and modified and agile database, the process management and the team collaboration, that tends to be a good fit.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dave. And that is all the time we have for questions. So naturally going to move into next steps here. So with all this excitement brewing about optimizing your digital execution into Kintone, it's a perfect time to sign up for a free and full feature trial to start building apps that your team needs to work better and organize data, workflows, and tasks. So, aside from our free trial, which you'll get more info in a follow-up email along with the recording of the session, wanted to share more about Kintone Connect, which Dave touched on earlier. It's the perfect place to learn more about the no-code revolution. There's going to be a lot of great features and speakers from use cases of Kintone, like Betsy Thurlow at McCormick. Also, John Reimer, Forrester analyst, will be our keynote, along with Dave as well. So, more about how your business can benefit from the no code revolution. So, make sure to not miss Kintone Connect. It's our second annual digital transformation user conference, and it's happening November 2nd in San Francisco. For attending this webinar, we have a 50% discount code if you use the code webinar, but this is good for the next 2 weeks. So please make sure you take advantage of this. And again, I will include more information about this in the follow-up email. So keep an eye out for that. So that, thank you again. Thank you to Dave for sharing all your knowledge. And we're here for you. Any questions, we are here and happy to answer them. So we'll look forward to hearing from you and hope you all have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.